Throughout this section, we have built this login form that has a fair amount of code. We don't want to repeat all this code, especially the parts about validation, every time we want to build a new form. So, in this section, we're going to quickly overview the code in this component and decide what parts we need to extract and put in a reusable component. So, let's start with the state. What is reusable here? Well, we want every form to have this errors property in the state object. What about the schema? Is this reusable? Obviously not. This is specific to login. What about the validate method? Do you see anything about the concept of login in here? Absolutely not. This is a completely reusable piece of code. The only tricky part is the first argument we pass to the validate method. Here we're referencing this.state.account, but we're not going to have this account object in another form. Maybe we're editing a movie. So what should we do here? Well, we can come up with a convention and assume that in all our forms in the state object, we're going to have a property called data that represents the data behind that form. Here, that data should be set to an account object. In another form, data will be set to a different kind of object. With this simple convention, we can easily extract this validate method and put it in a reusable component. The same is true for validate property. What about handle submit method? Well, this one is an interesting one. The first part of this method is reusable because every time we build a form in React, we want to disable the default behavior. We don't want to post this form to the server. Also, every time the user clicks the submit button, we want to validate the data. And if there are any errors, we want to return. We don't want to continue. But what happens after? It's dependent upon the kind of form we're building. What about handle change? Again, here we are dealing with a reusable piece of logic because every time the user is typing something in an input field, we want to validate that input field, but we also want to update the state. Now, once again, here we're referencing the account object, but if we rename this to data, then we'll have a completely reusable piece of logic. And finally, the render method. Obviously, what we return here is dependent on the kind of form we're building. However, the last part here, this submit button, apart from the label, everything else is reusable. For example, we want to disable our button when the form is not valid. Also, we want to apply these two classes. So over the next few lectures, we will refactor this code step by step and extract a reusable form component.